Hello, everyone. I'm Melissa McAllister, and you're listening to The Melissa Made Show. Now, for decades, I've dedicated myself to helping women break the cycle of dieting, navigate through all the fads, and change their lives through my nutrition coaching. Now, each week, I'm going to talk about everything from deep nutrition, mindset, self-care, the ideal workout routine, tips on how and why to implement intermittent fasting in your life, my favorite recipes that are not only crowd pleasers, but they're actually healthy for you, and so much more. Now, with small and consistent changes, you can defy aging while living a happier, healthier, and more heart-filled life. I'm so excited to show you it's possible with the right strategies that are so simple to adopt.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Melissa Made Show. And humble brag right here, I think I'm a really good cook, I've never had, people are nice, but I've never had anybody ever be like, yeah, she's a pretty good cook. It's always like, it's really good. My kids will say that, Mick will say that. That's how I've kept him around for as long as I have. And I don't spend a lot of time on food, but I cook. I think I do well budget-wise, and I think I do really good keeping it extremely healthy, and it tastes great. So I wanted to do a podcast talking to you about kind of how I create my grocery shopping, and then how I always have what I need to prepare very delicious food. So I'm going to start with each meal. And I'll start with breakfast, then I'll kind of talk about lunch and then dinner. Keep in mind that sometimes I go to the grocery store, but a lot of times I have food delivery, because that's number one, it keeps me from buying things that might be a weakness. Number two, they're already out doing grocery shopping deliveries anyway. And so I think that's better for the environment. 3, it's a job for somebody and I get to tip them. And 4, it's very, very convenient. But I know not everybody has access to that, because in our old house, I couldn't do that. This one I can. And there is a little bit of a surcharge, but if it's possible for you, or even for you to drive to the grocery store and to park and have them bring it to you, if you tend to be the person that cruises through and is like, oh, I'm going to try this, I'm going to have this, and then it knocks you out of your eating habits for the goals that you set for yourself, then really consider that. It's really been beneficial for me. And like I said, it's really time saving as well. So let's talk about breakfast. So for me, breakfast is, usually non-negotiable. Mick and I usually have our breakfast after we've gotten up, had our coffee together. Here lately, it's hot as hell. So I've been walking really early and then working out and then having breakfast, and same with Mick. And so our breakfast is a little bit later. I would like to say it's around between 10 and 11 a.m. That's neither here nor there, except that we're really good and hungry by the time we have breakfast. And the things that I always have on my grocery list are eggs, spinach, or bok choy, or an avocado, just some sort of green that I can incorporate into my breakfast somehow. Berries, all the berries, strawberries, blackberries, raspberries, blueberries, any kind of berries that I can get. I even have some dried goji berries in my pantry. Yogurt, I get the plain Greek yogurt. Sometimes I get coconut yogurt. I do like to mix that up. I'm here to tell you, the older I get, the more variety of foods I try to get in my diet. So if I'm stuck to always having the same kind of yogurt, I encourage you to try a different brand, another good quality brand, but a different brand, because they might have a little bit different stuff in there. Or instead of getting a dairy-based one, get, a coconut-based one, or a different kind of yogurt. Play around with things. Give your gut as much diversity as you can. But yogurt is on there usually. And Mick, bless his heart, is getting very used to the healthier versions of things. Because if he had his way, he would get a vanilla yogurt, or maybe a fruit-filled yogurt that really has a lot of sugar. And so I've got slowly weaned him off, and he's now okay. with just plain Greek yogurt because I do put a lot of goodies in it. I put nuts, I put seeds in there, I put lots of berries. So it really kind of hides that bitterness of the Greek yogurt. And if he can change, you guys, you can change. I promise you. Steel cut oatmeal. I can't right now, off the top of my head, tell you which brand I get, but I really look for the faster cooking kind. And you can find that rolled oats or steel cut oats are obviously best because they're less refined. They take longer for the body to break down. When they take longer for the body to break down, they don't give you quite the sugar spike. And keep in mind, you guys know me, I'm not huge into grains. And so we don't have oatmeal that often, but it's always in the pantry. And we might have it once, maybe twice a week. He has it more often than I do. He really likes oatmeal, especially during the cold months. And so it's there for us because it can be part of a healthy diet, especially when it's paired with things like your eggs and protein. Okay. So that it's not just that big rush of carbohydrates, especially if it's the quick oats. It's a very quick rush of sugar to the bloodstream. Sprouted or fermented bread. I think we don't have, again, very often, but if I wanted to make avocado toast with egg on top, a sprouted or fermented bread, I think is fantastic. Smoked Gouda or any kind of cheese. Again, you guys know me, I'm just not a big fan of cheese. I think my body might tolerate it pretty well, but I'm not a huge fan. Mick does like a little bit. And I just want to encourage you, there's such a big difference between a big block of Kraft cheese versus a small block of like smoked Gouda out of the cheese section of your grocery store. More small artisan cheeses are more quality made. And this is partially why, you always hear about the French and the Italians and how they can have all of this stuff and not have the digestive issues and necessarily the weight gain. The more love that's put into a food, the better your body responds to it. So just keep that in mind. I even looked up once for one of my clients. She loves cheese, absolutely loves it. And we found a website that actually will import cheese from France and all of these places that, these families that have done it generationally will make these cheeses and you can buy that. And that is such a better quality for you than something mass produced like from Kraft. And then last but not least, of course, some bacon, some salami, some ham, some pepperoni. Again, we don't have that every day. Those are processed meats. They're not something you want to have in large quantities. But say, for instance, you like pizza, and I'm not saying this absolutely will replace your pizza, and it shouldn't, but think about taking your eggs, scrambling them up and putting them in your muffin tins and putting a couple of black olives in there and a piece of pepperoni. It tastes pretty close to pizza. It really does. And that might satisfy your savory craving for pizza to have these egg bites that have pepperoni and black olives or mushrooms in there or whatever you like on your pizza, some peppers. It's mind blowing. It really does a good job of going, that's pretty close. So that's just an idea. So again, for breakfast, eggs, spinach or bok choy or avocados, something green. Green is good. Go green. Berries, yogurt, steel cut oatmeal. I do get a Mick granola, but here lately I've been really careful trying to get like a grain-free granola because it's more like coconut and nuts and seeds and dried fruit, which I think is better for him. But he will put his granola sometimes on top of his oatmeal, but definitely on top of his yogurt to give it that crunch. The sprouted or the fermented breads, base culture is great. Obviously, Ezekiel, I'm going to talk about wild grain here in a second, but I've fallen in love with wild grain, no sponsorship or whatsoever, but it's just really good quality, simple bread. And then, of course, your cheese and then bacon, salami, a ham, pepperoni to increase that protein intake because you want your breakfast to be loaded with protein. Okay. Moving on to lunch. So for lunch, my lunches are usually smaller. Most of the time, Mick will skip lunch because he's such a busybody that I can't get him in for lunch unless he's home and I can just tell him to sit down for a second and let me give you something. This is where a shake comes in really handy because if he's out working, I can hand him a shake and he'll drink it while he works. So I do still absolutely love my Shakeology. I think it's a really good product. I do add protein to it because I want it to be a little bit higher in protein. But as far as the adaptogens and the phytonutrients and the mushrooms in it, I think it's about as good as you can get something in a powder form. But think about like organic apples and a nut butter. That's a really good snack. Keep in mind, I always have Epic bars in my pantry. If you haven't heard of those, you might have. I like the real long, skinny ones, as opposed to the ones that are more chunky, like a rectangle, because to me, it tastes more like it's already been pre-chewed. It's disgusting, but that's kind of how I feel. But I love their Epic bars because they give you, they're only about 70, 80 calories. They give you a nice bit of protein. So even if you're eating something like apples and nut butter, that's not really that high in protein, you can have an Epic bar as well. It's not super high in calories. And it's a lot of wild game. So you can get wild caught salmon, you can get elk, you can get bison. They have chicken. They have such a huge variety of different wild game meats, which again, here we're talking about diversity. You want different foods. And so you're eating something, you're like, this really doesn't have, much protein. And I know it's not going to probably satiate me that long. Grab an Epic bar, keep them in the car, keep them in your backpack, keep them in your purse, travel with them. I think they're really great for that. They're pretty dang clean, and you're getting a source of nutrition from something that I bet you don't really have that often. And I think they're really tasty, to be honest. So like I said, organic apples, nut butters. I think celery with tuna and some avocado mayo is really good. So you just whip it. It's really quick. Open up a can. If you have cats, they're going to come running. Our bobcats, especially Monaco, loved tuna. She would fight Mick for his bowl of tuna. And eat it with some celery. You got that crunch. It's going to be very filling. It's got a nice dose of healthy fat and some protein in it. And you got those omegas in there. So celery, and you can actually take it on the go with you as well. So I think that's a really good lunch. Sometimes nuts and dried fruit, and again, an Epic bar. Be careful with the dried fruit. I think if you're going to have dried fruit, to do things that really are going to give you the bang for your buck, like dried cherries, pomegranates, these fruits, dried blueberries, I think dates, or even prunes. If you happen to be someone that doesn't go real regularly, to have a couple of prunes, they're tasty, they're super sweet, and they're going to help keep you regular. And the nuts have a good healthy fat in them as well, and protein. And then the Epic bar, again, adds a little bit more protein to it if it's not, quite enough to make it a very satiating meal for you for lunch. Leftovers make a fantastic lunch. So when you make dinner, seriously eat until you're about 3/4 full, with the notion in mind, this would be great for lunch tomorrow too. And then I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to make anything. It's really good, and have it the next day as well. So don't always feel like you have to finish your food or you have to throw anything away. Always tell yourself, especially if you go out to eat, a lot of this can also be my lunch tomorrow. So leftovers are great for that. And then of course, a shake of some sort. Hopefully it's a meal replacement shake and not just a protein shake. You want a lot of nutrition in there, not just protein. And so that's again why I like Shakeology. So to go over that again, organic apples, or maybe pears if you like those, nut butters, Epic bars, celery and tuna with avocado mayo, nuts and dried fruit with, again, like an Epic bar. Leftovers are fantastic, or make yourself a shake, or you could go somewhere and get a shake. Just be real careful that they know exactly what you want in it, so they don't overload those sugars in the shake. Okay. Because that's anything that's liquid like that really goes to the bloodstream really quick. And if you have any kind of issues with your blood sugar, it's just going to cause a little bit of problems later, because it won't drop that fast, or it's going to drop super fast and you're going to be hungry again when you really shouldn't be. Are you ready to learn the secret behind how I continue to be so healthy? Well, it all comes down to science. If you've been listening to my show for a while now, you may have heard me mention something called the MAID diet. Yes, that's right, because I'm so passionate about how learning about the effects that nutrition has on the human body, I always seek to learn as much as I can and apply that knowledge. One of my best learning tools has been self-experimentation. And now in my late 40s, I have to say, I've done a pretty good job. It's hard to find trustworthy, even accurate information in this country. Between the influence of big corporations with monetary agendas, the nutrition labels designed to deceive, and downright misleading information that you were taught in school, navigating food and nutrition with your optimum health in mind can be quite challenging. Take the food pyramid, for example. In an ideal world, I'm sure we would all love to eat pasta and baguettes for every meal, but that's simply not what's best for our bodies, our health, and our longevity. Now, I spent years developing the MAID diet in a way that I wish someone had taught me, and I break it all down in my MAID diet course. People are always asking me what I eat, so we start there. What I eat in a day and which foods are the most beneficial. So think something in between the Mediterranean and the paleo diet. It's a lifestyle plan that incorporates moderate protein, adequate fat, decreased carbs, and an introduction to intermittent fasting. But please, I want you to keep in mind, just because I say decrease carbs, I don't mean decrease carbs in what your body needs. I just mean decrease carbs in what the standard American diet has become. You still get plenty of quality carbohydrates, just not in the mass amounts we have been eating to get us into such an unhealthy state. And of course, we're going to talk about what foods to avoid because that's just as important. We even talk about how to eat healthy on the go because let's face it, we're busy and that's just life. And then there's intermittent fasting. I share all of my favorite tips and tricks, and a lot of science are along the way. I could not say enough good things about intermittent fasting, and I'm honestly so surprised more people are doing it. You'll also learn how I've learned to balance my hormones and feel my best because so many women struggle with this. And lastly, we cover the mindset behind making a change because we all know that your mindset is the key to your success in anything that you do. So if you are struggling with diet in terms of feeling your best or you are ready to take your health to the next level, I strongly recommend you check out this course. Now, the course is structured in 5 modules, 16 lessons, and a whole lot of research to back everything up. So I want you to visit my website, themaiddiet.com or melissamaid.com, and you will see a tab for the course. Click on that to get access today and learn why you should be eating this way too. All right, let's move on to dinner. I really enjoy cooking dinner. For me, I work really, really hard. And then around 5 o'clock, I'm like, okay, brain break. I will turn on my phone. Like I've said before, a lot of times I have my TikTok programmed to really be nothing but comedians. And so I'll turn on my TikTok and I'll listen to comedians as I cook, or I'll listen to a podcast or something like that. And I just make it a great experience. And I always start with, again, some sort of fibrous vegetable, which could be broccoli, Brussels sprouts, green beans, and we could have a side salad. But, you know, in this world, obviously your protein sources are really important, but also your green vegetables, your fibrous vegetables. I say green, could be cauliflower, you know, you could have some other sorts of vegetables that aren't necessarily green. But I really do. That's my mindset is I'm like, I would love to have every time we have dinner, something green on my plate. And I'm not talking green Jello. I really like green Jello. Jello is fun, but I'm talking a nutritious green portion. So you're getting your fiber, you're getting a ton of vitamins and minerals in these vegetables. Okay. So starches, a lot of times I will do starches as well. Potatoes, rice. And here I'm talking about wild grain again. It's just wildgrain.com. And I've been buying their bread lately because they have the fermented sourdough and all of these different, really well-cooked, small batch breads that come to you frozen. You put in the oven frozen, it comes out, and it's mind-blowingly good. Mind-blowingly. I mean, I have never had, and I've traveled the world, I have never had better bread. They have got it nailed. And I just think it's a better choice. You see the ingredients, they're very clean. They don't put any crap in it. And like I said, a lot of it is fermented, which is really, really good as far as digestion goes for these breads. But that'll be a start. Sometimes we'll have a roll or a piece of the bread. We'll have like, I try to get organic rice. I don't care if it's white. I don't care if it's brown. I don't care if it's, you know, seasoned a little bit, just some rice. Mick likes rice here and there. And we'll have potatoes a lot, but keep in mind, sometimes it's white potatoes, sometimes it's orange potatoes, sometimes it's purple potatoes, sometimes it's yellow gold potatoes. Once again, my friends, I try really hard to create that variety. My gut loves purple potatoes. It loves white. It loves orange. It loves the Yukon gold. So get out of, if this is you, get out of only buying one kind of potato. Like you're like, I know sweet potatoes are good for me. Well, yeah, white potatoes can be good for you too, because there's components in there that aren't in the sweet potatoes. And purple potatoes, which you can actually buy on Amazon. I have to give Claire Morrow, my girlfriend, credit for that. On Amazon, you can buy purple potatoes. It's like, I think the only food you can buy. If you've never had them, they're wonderful and they're just a beautiful color. So have different kinds of starches as well. For me, it's a very small portion of starch, which I'm very comfortable with. Mick has a little bit bigger one because, like I said, remember, he skips lunch a lot of times. And so I need to help make up for those calories in his dinner. And so he's got a way bigger portion of starches than I do. And then even like corn on the cob, we both love. I love corn on the cob, organic corn on the cob, because I trust that more. It's still the plant and it's organic. And so we have that on occasion, but I do consider it a starch, not really, a fibrous vegetable, but more of a starch and more of a treat, and just a small portion of that. Now, when it comes to meats, I think this is a really big one. I use Butcher Box a lot. I do get meats from Whole Foods sometimes as well, because Butcher Box variety isn't ginormous. But things that I get that I always have in my freezer is definitely red meat. Like I'll have ground bison. I think that's great instead of ground hamburger, because, I'll have steaks instead. So for me, I love grass-fed fillets. Mick does love his ribeye. And so that's the red meat. If I'm going to get another sort of red meat, I try to get something different. Like I said, bison. I love lamb. We love lamb. We get that every once in a while. I think having salmon at least once a week is so important for your health. Listen to me. If we've been friends for a while, you know what I'm going to say, but if not, please buy smoked sea salt. Okay. Get it anywhere. Smoked sea salt. I still like Tutu's Pantry. Tutu's Pantry. I'll live and die by that company and her herbs and her seasonings. Get what you pay for, comes straight from Maui, and it's made with love, and it's good stuff. Smoked sea salt. Put your smoked sea salt on your salmon. Don't overdo it because it's pretty potent, but also don't. So you might have to play with it. The first time you have it, you're like, I can barely taste it. You need to add more. Next time you put too much on and you're like, oh my God, this is too smoky. You overdid it. You just got to play with it. Maybe put a little bit on, cook it. And if it's not enough, you can sprinkle a little bit more on afterwards. It is a game changer for salmon. Game changer. Okay. So I would love for you guys to try that. If you tell yourself you don't like salmon, to try that. Okay. And at least have it once a week. Have a white fish once a week. Like last night, Mick and I had Chilean sea bass. That's a beautiful fish as well. If you've never had it, it's very buttery. It's so good. Just salt and pepper in the air fryer. Cook the crap out of it because it's very watery and oily, and to get the outside crispy, you got to cook it, and it's still really moist inside. It's just a crazy fish, but it's wonderful. Crab or shrimp, great for you. Shrimp is such a good, great source of protein. Pork, heritage pork, if you've ever heard of that, that's the best kind to get. And then wild game, any and everywhere that you can get it. We're lucky enough to have friends that hunt, and they will give us venison and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. I really enjoy that. And then of course, chicken or turkey, but chicken a couple times a week too. So if you think to yourself, red meat, salmon, white fish, crab and shrimp, pork, wild game and chicken, you're only eating those once a week, for those of you, and I say this tongue in cheek, cautiously, those of you watching your cholesterol and worried about red meat, we ain't going to go there, but having it once a week of a really good quality grass-fed, grass-finished, happy cow, lived a happy life, then having it once a week, even up to twice a week, is perfectly fine. But you can have it once a week and still have all of these other wonderful meats to keep your protein intake up, to keep your gut going, wow, this is cool. This variety is awesome. All these different things. And to keep you from getting bored. That's a lot of different meats. So again, my friends, if you are only buying chicken and hamburger meat or chicken and steak, and that's all you eat all week long, please diversify that. Learn to play with it. Learn to make other things. Most of the meat that I cook 50-50 cast iron versus air fryer. And I've had to play with that. I tried putting a steak in the air fryer the other day. Cast iron all day long. And again, you're going to have to play with that to learn to perfect your steak in a cast iron. Okay. Learn to fail and eat it anyway. Cut it up and put it into a stew or something. But play, and you're going to fail at some things until you get really, really good at it. And it's just going to be your next favorite thing to cook and your specialty. You'd be surprised. All right. I want to talk about like different cooking methods, like I sort of just said, but like for Brussels sprouts, my mom boiled them. They smelled horrible. They were disgusting, goobery, yucky little alien heads. Hated them. And it wasn't until I got older and I started going to nicer restaurants and seeing that they were, a lot of them were frying the Brussels sprouts, or they were cooking it with bacon and all this stuff. And I'm like, God, they can actually be good. So I started playing with it. So I was putting them in the air fryer, spritzing them with olive oil, and they were okay. They were way better than boiled, and they were okay, but they really dried out in the air fryer. The best way to cook Brussels sprouts is you can put them in anything, but I put them in my cast iron. And I spritz them with olive oil, put salt and pepper on them, and I stick them in like a 400-degree oven and cook them about a third of the way through. And then I put just like a strip or two of bacon in there and cut it really small so it's dispersed throughout the Brussels sprouts in a cast iron, but in the oven, cooked that way. They stay super moist, but the outside gets a little bit crispy. Hands down, any Brussels sprout hater will love eating them that way. And I'll tell you that because that was Mick. He hated Brussels sprouts, but he actually really enjoys them that way. And you don't have to, the best Brussels sprouts in restaurants are usually fried. They just don't tell you that. But these taste almost fried, but they're barely spritzed with olive oil, and they're so good for you. Steak, like I just said, I tried putting it in the cast iron the other day. That's the opposite. I don't want to put them in the oven. I don't want to put them in an air fryer. I want to cook them in the cast iron. And depending on how thick they are or how much you like them done, you want to make sure that you are cooking it to your liking, and having a thermometer is really helpful that way. They say to do the finger test, which I don't know if that really, I've never used that. I can just kind of tell by pushing on it, which I guess is this way, but I think maybe my hands are too lean and they're hard everywhere. I don't know, but I can just kind of press on it and I'm like, okay, that's definitely done. Or just cut in it a little bit and learn timing for your oven, your mode of whether you use a stainless steel or you use a cast iron to make it the temperature that you want, but that makes all the difference. Cast iron for sure for steak. And the chicken is the air fryer. Mick and I's favorite thing is to buy the whole leg. It's got the thigh and it's got the drumstick on it, and we'll season it again with Tutu's Pantry. She has an all-purpose seasoning, I think it is. Love it on this chicken. And we'll stick those legs in the air fryer and cook them again for about 30 to 40 minutes. And the skin becomes very crispy. You almost feel like you're having fried chicken. Oh, it's to die for. It's so they hold their heat though. Be careful how many times Mick and I have ruined our mouth. We're so anxious to eat this chicken, but that chicken holds its heat. But again, amazing. So here I am. Chicken is hands down air fryer. Steak is hands down cast iron. And then Brussels sprouts is in the oven. So you've got to have all of these different ways to make things and play with it. If your best friend told you Brussels sprouts are best in the air fryer and you didn't really enjoy it, try it in the oven. Okay. Play with it. Make your kitchen a place of experiments, and enjoy the process of learning new ways to do things better. Okay. Alongside that is I really want you to have a nice big pantry full of different herbs and seasonings, marinades, learning to sear your food. For me, I don't care how good of a quality cut meat it is, and even how well seasoned it is. If it's not seared, so most of you have probably heard of Pittsburgh style. Some of you may have not. Every time we go to Mexico, they always look at us funny. It's not real popular there. Pittsburgh style means that, it's really seared on the outside, but medium rare or even rare on the inside. So it's pretty red on the inside, but seared hard. So it's almost got a crunchy outer layer. So good. So it's the way that you cook it. I don't love a steak. Again, Mexico, you don't go to Mexico for steak. they don't like to season their meat and it's cooked medium well, no matter how you ask them to cook it. You go to Mexico for seafood. And they make pretty good chicken too. But here in Texas, they know how to make a steak. And the best way is Pittsburgh style. Trust me. And I like a Pittsburgh steak. I won't order a steak if it's going to come out soft on the outside. I don't know how else to say it. So it's just really important that you learn to make food with the herbs and the seasonings, and maybe it's a marinade, maybe it's a light sauce. Be real careful with that. I don't use any sauces. I really like food to taste the way it does with a little bit of herbs and seasoning on it, but that's really important too. Even for those of you that crock pot, have you ever, maybe for my amateur crock potters out there, bought a roast, but you didn't know what kind of roast to get, like a pot roast versus a chuck roast? If you've made a roast before and it was dry and terrible, then you might have gotten like a round roast, an eye round roast or a top, what do they call that? A top roast? Chuck. Get a chuck roast. It is the kind that you put in there with your vegetables. And by the time it's done, it becomes stringy and it's amazing. Chuck roast. But I've made the mistake of buying, not knowing that it was specifically chuck. Hello, chuck. You have to get that kind of roast for a crock pot. Otherwise, it's gross. So get a chuck roast, get yourself some potatoes, some carrots, some onions. You can sear your chuck roast first and then put it in your crock pot and cook it all day long. And it's definitely a favorite in this household, especially when it's a little bit cooler. Let's talk about dessert. So of course, who doesn't like something sweet to finish off their meal? So keep in mind, like I even just posted today on my social media, dark chocolate. Dark chocolate is so rich, you really can't overdo it. So if you find yourself a really good dark chocolate that maybe has some nuts in it or some dried raspberries or pomegranates in it, depending on if you like it a little bit sweet or you like it crunchy, just a little tiny chunk, zero makes a dark chocolate with hazelnuts, other stuff too. And it's just it's an individually wrapped, perfect size little piece. It's like 70 calories, I think, might be a little bit more. Individually wrapped though, that's huge. In Mexico, last time I was there, I bought a big bag of Hershey's Kisses. Probably not your best kind of chocolate, but I would every night, I would grab 3 Hershey's Kisses. Kelly can attest to that. Roseanne, my girlfriend, can attest to that. She was there. And I would hand them 3 and I would have 3. And it was just enough to satisfy that sweet tooth. So think individually wrapped goodies if you tend to have the tendency to overdo that. Maybe like fudge bars, those little single fudge bars, those are great. Again, they're probably about 70 calories. They're individually wrapped. You got to eat them slowly because they're frozen and they're going to satisfy that sweet tooth. Or maybe during the summer, you're going to take advantage of all the wonderful fruit and have watermelon, cut up some watermelon and share that with your family. Dessert can be great. Just make sure that you get things that are easy for you to be satisfied with just a little bit. And consider between your meal and your dessert or right after your dessert, going for that short 10 or 15-minute walk, because most desserts, of course, are a little bit higher in sugar. And you want your muscles to use that sugar instead of it, just kind of sitting there before you go to bed. So move your muscles a little bit and go for a walk or something after your meals. It'll help with digestion. It'll help with the blood sugar and you getting rid of that sugar before you go to bed. Okay. So I want to end this by saying, just practice cooking. Okay. Nothing breaks my heart more when people say, I don't like to cook. And I'm like, gosh, I just wish that you and I could play in the kitchen. I think you would really enjoy it if you have everything that you need. So number one, is your kitchen well equipped? Do you have a food processor? Do you have a good blender? Do you have an air fryer? I have 2. A nice oven. I have 2. I love our gas stove. I've cooked on everything. Everything works, but I definitely like my gas stove the best. A microwave, a stocked freezer, a stocked pantry full of all your seasoning and stuff. If you have what you need, it just becomes very fun. And it's just so much better for you to cook at home for so many reasons. Cost, what's in your food, you appreciate it more. I want you to make it a fun environment. Like I said, I turn on comedians or a podcast and you can put on music and you can dance while you cook or call your best friend that's in another state and catch up. involve the family. Oh, get those kids involved to help you cook. I know it makes it a slower process and it makes it a messier process, but in the long run, you're going to create great memories, and those kids are going to love being in the kitchen as well because they learned from mom or they learned from dad. Okay. And clean as you go. I've learned that. I've really made an effort to kind of clean as I'm going from one thing to the next. And I've gotten so good at multitasking my meals. I mean, I can have 5 different things going and they will all be ready at the exact same time. That's one of my superpowers. But I do clean as I go. So I stay nice and busy. And when dinner's about done, there's hardly anything left for me to do, which makes it so it's not that big of a deal, as opposed to we have a friend named Sean. He used to be a chef for 4 seasons and he's incredible. And he makes it a 4-hour experience cooking for us. Oh, and when he's done, it literally looks like a bomb went off in my kitchen. And I'm like, and I'm going to do the dishes because he just spent 4 hours cooking this amazing meal for us. And I'm like, oh gosh, it's worth it, but almost not worth it, but it's worth it. So clean as you go. And then last but not least, please keep it simple. Cooking deliciously needs to be simple. As I say, single ingredient foods, but combine them. Like have your yogurt in the morning with some fresh berries and a little bit of granola on top or nuts and seeds, and enjoy that. Have your eggs all different types of ways. You can scramble them over easy, put them on toast, put them in a pan and put them in the oven, make a souffle, make a frittata. Play. Variety is the spice of life. And it's just so good for your gut to do things in a different way, and really start making it a priority to cook more for you and your family. I honestly, from the bottom of my heart, tell you, it doesn't take that. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner never takes me much time at all, ever. And there are times that I can make it bigger, batch it so that I know I have leftovers for lunch the next day, or we can have the same dinner the next night, because it's time saving. And food establishments these days, their number one goal is to make the food as cheap as they can, feed you as much as they can so that they can make as much of a profit as they can. Where you're at home, you know exactly what's in your food and you are in control of how much you eat. And I think that's a wonderful thing. So I hope that was helpful. I think that was kind of long, but I wanted to do this for a long time because I don't necessarily believe in those what I eat in a day sort of things, because what I eat specifically is not most likely what you need to eat or what your family eats. But I do think there are some foundations, like I talked about, just these certain foods to have at your fingertips, and all of these different kitchen stuffs and these herbs and seasonings, and the enjoyment of doing it all and making the memories with it is really what makes the difference. And I hope this was helpful to you. So I hope you wake up feeling prepared to make your next meal, and then go to bed feeling proud because you did that. You made it. You can make your bread. My focaccia bread that's on my social media, it's 3 ingredients and it's to die for. I'm going to make it for the 4th of July. And I feel good giving it to my family because there's no questionable things in it, right? So anyway, you guys have a great day. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you so much. And I hope this was helpful.
Wow, we've reached the end. But before I leave you, I'd love to hear from you. After all, it's not every day that someone reaches out and asks for your opinion. And to me, your opinion does matter. So please share this episode with anyone that you think needs to hear this message. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. My name is Melissa McAllister. And until next time, thank you for being your own health advocate.